Chapter 17. Santiago looked away from the window. Little more than a week had passed since his injury, and he was already sick of spending endless hours staring out at the same trees, the same piece of lawn, the same long drive leading down to the same gates. His home had become like a prison, especially when he was on his own. Rested. Complete rest. That was the main order he'd been given. Keep off the foot. No exercise at all for at least 4 and maybe 8 weeks. He'd heard that from the specialists. The national team doctor, the club doctor, the physio, and even from Roz, whose medical training meant she knew a fair amount about metatarsal breaks. Santi was wearing a removable plastic cast so that the break was immobilized. This meant that the cast could be removed for physiotherapy treatment, which would prevent stiffness in his foot and ankle. Santi was doing exactly as he'd been ordered, following his instructions to the letter, and it was driving him crazy. He was being a pain to Roz and Enrique, and even to little Rosie, but all he could think about was that it looked as though he would miss his second World Cup in succession through injury, and that maybe his last chance of ever playing in the finals was gone. The injury was having repercussions in many areas. The club management was not happy that he had picked up the injury while on international duty. It was a risk all clubs with international players in their ranks were faced with, but soccer players wanted to represent their countries and they couldn't be wrapped in cotton wool, no matter what their club managers felt. The St. James Park faithful were even more incensed. With the ongoing injury crisis, Santi had been the mainstay of the fans' hopes for the season. His performances could have made the difference between the Magpies finishing the season in a respectable Premiership position or down in the bottom half of the charts. Now he was out, almost certainly for the remainder of the season, when the team could least afford to lose him. Internet chat rooms and message boards were full of furious comments and words of protest from angry supporters. Santi didn't usually bother much with checking out the sites, but to ease the boredom out of not training or playing, he had looked at a few, and they didn't make good reading. This was the second time Santi had suffered a broken bone in the leg. That, added to his broken arm and the succession of injuries he had suffered at Real Madrid, had caused one supporter to dub him Sick Note Muñez. Sick Note was a nickname once given to the former Spurs and England winger Darren Anderton, who was plagued by injuries for much of his career, and it was a name Santi didn't want. He was thinking about it as he slumped down in the sofa. He sighed. He wasn't good at spending so much time alone. The familiar sound of Roz's VW broke into his gloomy thoughts. He sat up. "Okay, Muñez," he said quietly. "Be calm. Be nice." He hadn't been calm or particularly nice over the past few days. He was angry, with himself as much as anything, and he'd been taking it out on everyone around him, especially those closest to him, and Roz was closest of all. He had to try to be more reasonable and less short-tempered. He smiled as Roz came into the room, holding Rosie by the hand. "Hello, Princess," he said to Rosie, who gave him one of her sunniest smiles. Santi turned to Roz. "And how's my other princess?" "Long day," Roz replied, "and busy." She came over and kissed Santi. "How about you?" "Driver picked me up and took me for the treatment, and then back here. Every day's the same right now. Oh, and Gavin called about an hour ago to see how I was doing and to tell me how well his team is playing." "I'm glad he called." "He's a good friend." "You've got a lot of good friends." "I haven't seen much of them." Roz and Santi were both being cautious about what they said. It wasn't natural to them, but Roz felt that being around Santi had been like walking on eggshells for the past week. She had to tread delicately. "To be fair, Santi," she said now, "that's mainly your fault. You've not exactly been welcoming to visitors. You hardly said a word when Jamie came around." "It's hard for me to talk to Jamie." "Hard? He and Gavin are your best friends." "Yeah, but..." "What?" Santi sighed. "My injury is bad. Really bad. I know that, but I'll get over it, even if I do miss the World Cup." He paused for a moment. "I know," Roz said, sitting next to him and taking his hands in hers. They both watched Rosie happily playing on the carpet with one of her toys for a few moments. "But Jamie's soccer career ended before it had really begun," she added softly. Santi nodded. "I've got no right to moan and feel sorry for myself when I'm with Jamie." "Even when," said Roz with a smile, "what you really want to do is moan and feel sorry for yourself." Santi nodded again. "You noticed? Just a bit. I'm sorry, Roz. I know you are, and you know that you got no option but to be patient. Everyone will do everything they can to get you to the World Cup, and I'm here to support you, and so are friends like Jamie. Yeah, you're right. Why don't you give him a call? Ask him to come over tonight. I know he won't mind if you have a little moan, but not for too long. Yeah, I will. Thanks, babe. All part of the service, said Roz with a smile. She kissed him on the cheek and pushed herself up from the sofa. And now I'm going to have a long hot soak in the tub while you keep an eye on our darling daughter. My pleasure. Roz walked toward the door but then stopped and turned back. Oh, by the way, where's Enrique? I don't know. He's not come back from school yet. Roz thought for a few moments. He's been laid back a lot recently. Seems a bit happier though, I think. She shrugged her shoulders. Even after nearly 4 months with us, I'm still never quite sure with Enrique. End of chapter 17.